Good afternoon and welcome everybody for the press conference by Honorable Union Minister Dr. Jitendra Singh on the launch of PSLV C60 SpaceX Space Docking Experiment Mission. I welcome Honorable Union Minister Jitendra Singh on behalf of PLV. Welcome to you, sir. I also welcome Shri Prashant Kumar Jha, OST2 Minister of State, Shri Rajiv Jaiswal, OST2 Chairman ISRO and Department of Space. In a groundbreaking milestone of space exploration, India proudly launched the PSLV C60 Space Docking Experiment last night on December 30th, 2024. This achievement marks yet another jewel in India's illustrious journey of space endeavors, showcasing the nation's relentless pursuit of technological excellence and innovation. To begin with, first of all, I would request Shri Rajiv Jaiswal ji, OST2 Chairman ISRO and Department of Space, to give a brief introduction on the year-long activities of ISRO.
एवं प्रौद्योगिकी और पृथ्वी विज्ञान एवं अंतरिक्ष विभाग के राज्य मंत्री डॉक्टर जितेंद्र सिंह को अंतरिक्ष विभाग की तरफ से मैं स्वागत करता हूं। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर, कल के सक्सेसफुल लॉन्च के लिए। कंटिन्यूसली आप लाइव थे, हम लोगों ने देखा और आपने हम लोगों को प्रोत्साहन किया फेडेक्स के लॉन्च पे सर। बहुत मामूली सा एक प्रेजेंटेशन करना चाह रहा हूँ जो इस साल की एक्टिविटीज़ हुई हैं। सर 2024 जैसा सबको पता है काफ़ी उत्साहपूर्वक रहा हम लोगों के लिए। 1 जनवरी से हमने लॉन्च किया PSLV C58 एक्सपोसैट मिशन और कल का लॉन्च जो दिसंबर 30 को हुआ। तो कुल मिला के इस साल 15 मिशंस हमारे हुए हैं और विभिन्न प्रकार के मिशंस रहे। कुछ तो डिमॉन्स्ट्रेशन डेवलपमेंटल मिशंस रहे, कुछ एनसिल द्वारा कमर्शियल लॉन्च रहे और हमारे प्राइवेट सेक्टर द्वारा अग्निकुल का स्टार्टअप जो है उसके द्वारा एक लॉन्च हुआ। जस्ट थोड़ा मैं एक मिशंस के बारे में बताना चाहूँगा। सर वी स्टार्टेड ईयर विथ जनवरी फर्स्ट लॉन्च ऑफ एक्सपोसैट। इट वाज एनीवे first dedicated scientific satellite from ISRO to carry out research in space-based polarimetry in X-rays missions for the celestial sources. Then on January 6th, sir, Aditya L1, which was launched 2023 September 2nd, it inserted in its targeted halo orbit on January 6th around 4 p.m. उसके बाद इनसेट 3DS मिशन जो कि डिमांड ड्रिवन सैटेलाइट है, फुल्ली फंडेड बाय मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ अर्थ साइंसेस, दैट वाज लॉन्च यूजिंग GSLV F14 on February 17, 2024. It was a meteorological satellite providing lot of weather related parameters to the country. Then we had launch of a small satellite launch vehicle August 16, 2024. It was third and final development flight and it is providing cost effective and on demand launch services for the small satellites and enables operational missions by Indian industry and एनसिल। जैसा सबको पता है कि अगस्त 23, 2023 में हमारा चंद्रयान 3 जो सॉफ्ट लैंडिंग हुआ और इट हैज़ क्रिएटेड हिस्ट्री। ऑनरेबल प्राइम मिनिस्टर डिक्लेयर्ड August 23 एज ए नेशनल स्पेस डे and its maiden space day was celebrated this year in Pragati Bharat Mandapam, where Honorable President of India presided over. So that was very well celebrated event in this year. Then sir GSAT N2 mission जो कि एनसिल का डेडिकेटेड मिशन था, लॉन्च हुआ from Florida USA. It was a very heavy satellite, 4,700 kilometer high throughput satellite. And this month itself we launched PSLV C59 for the Proba 3 mission, again a ENSIL mission for European Space Agency solar mission named Proba, which was launched by ENSIL. SpaceX के बारे में तो अभी सर और बताएंगे ही। कल ये सक्सेसफुली लॉन्च हुआ। ये 2 सैटेलाइट्स है टू डिमॉन्स्ट्रेट रेंडेवू एंड डॉकिंग बिटवीन दिस 2 सैटेलाइट्स इन ऑर्बिट. And it is going to be a precursor technology demonstration mission for the space docking to be undertaken for future Gaganyaan and Chandrayaan missions. And as you know, the vision given by Honorable Prime Minister and Government of India 2047, which envisions India being one of the most impactful space power with the Bharati Antariksh Station in orbit by 2035 and Indians having landed on the moon with indigenous technology by year 2040. So this experiment, yesterday's experiment, is going to pave the way for future Amrit Kal missions and all.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
This video shows how it has separated out these two satellites in the space itself, which is going to dock in very soon, another week's time. These are the two satellites, SpaceX A and B. जैसा कि पता है, yes, 2024 was another remarkable year where इसरो और भारतीय स्पेस प्रोग्राम के लिए एक आगे का पूरा रास्ता सरकार ने बना के दे दिया है. द विजन 2047 फॉर स्पेस इन द अमृत काल envisages creation of operational भारतीय अंतरिक्ष स्टेशन and Indian crewed lunar mission by 2040. So Department of Space towards Space Vision 2047 with the approval of key missions includes NGLV, the next generation launch vehicle, the reusable low-cost launch vehicle, the Chandrayaan 4, Venus orbiter mission, and the Gaganyaan follow-on mission. Sir, 2024 has been a remarkable year and productive year, not just for ISRO, but for the entire Indian space sector, and it has laid the foundation for technologies needed for an Indian human space exploration program in the long run. Thank you, sir.
I think at the outset it's my proud privilege to congratulate Team ISRO for having for having made us proud once again. And at the same time, I also wish to thank the Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Jitendra Modi ji. Much of the achievements that were being spelled out to you right now by Mr. Jaiswal have been possible because of the enabling milieu provided in the last 10 years, whether it be the space reforms, the opening up of the space sector to the private sector, and allowing FDI and resulting in some of the world-class startups which were just in single digit till about 4 years back. Now we are almost 300. That has been possible to a great extent, I think, because as the media friends very fondly reported at that time, the unlocking of space by Prime Minister Modi. And this is something that had been given up because nobody expected that ever the Department of Space, Government of India would be allowed this kind of liberty. And therefore known for his capacity to take out-of-box decisions and break many taboos of the past. When it was put across to Prime Minister Modi, he allowed us. All these missions, which are not only indigenous, but are also providing inputs and cues to the other space agencies across the world, and the other agencies are now looking forward to collaborate with India, which was not so, which was the other way around. And which, as I always also keep reiterating, that we had no dearth of talent or acumen or the potential among the ISRO scientists, beginning from the times of Vikram Sarabhai. You've seen those pictures in the archives, Sarabhai carrying some of his stuff on the carriage of a bicycle. But possibly what we were lacking was an enabling support from the policy makers, the political dispensation. That is precisely what has happened in the last 10 years. Now, the year 2024, also I don't know whether you noticed, the year began by making news about space. And I'm sure Pallav would bear me out when I say that. So it was the Aditya, the first solar mission by India, a very ambitious mission which had entered into L1 point. Of course, it's been launched earlier, or 3 months earlier, but it got into that destination in the month of January. And then throughout the year, we had, as was being told you, the first ever National Space Day observed. In the first 3 months after the Modi government 3.0 took over, then the Prova 3 mission is again a solar mission, which is of course being launched by ISRO, but belongs to the European Space Agency. In other words, we are now also assisting them to accomplish their missions. And in between, so many trials have happened for the Gaganyaan, which is in the pipeline. The first indigenous human mission, of course. The first Indian to go up was Rakesh Sharma, which happened in the early 1980s, but that was a Soviet mission. So the trials are almost now through. We're waiting for the final, you can call it a dress rehearsal in the form of Vayomitra female robo, which will happen sometime next year, which of course is starting tomorrow itself. And the huge amount of public interest which has been generated by the space achievements has actually created awareness as well as enthusiasm among the common citizens of India in various scientific pursuits across the lines. Not only confined to space, whether it's the biotechnology or it is the basic sciences, it is the cutting edge technologies, or it is the CSIR activities. Space has actually opened up that possibly that inertia which prevented the space activities to come so openly in the public domain. And to that extent, I also have to appreciate the media and thank them, because science-related news never made actually the mainstream news. So I think it is because of space that we have now started also occupying good space in the media. So space has given us space in media as well. Not only for space now, also for other activities related to science. Now, before we say anything more, except now coming straight to SpaceX, because that's what has inspired today's meeting. As has been already explained to you, this is one of the first experiments undertaken by India as far as the docking technology is concerned. But I think what makes it special is that it is a purely indigenous technology, and that's why it's been appropriately named as Bharatiya docking technology. And that is very much in keeping with Prime Minister Modi's mantra of Atmanirbhar Bharat. Secondly, when we look forward to having a Gaganyaan and we look forward to having multiple satellites in the space, and to put it in simple terms for the benefit of the layman, when we talk of transferring material from one satellite or the one spacecraft to the other, be that the payloads, be that the laboratory samples, the inputs, and maybe someday even the human being walking one spacecraft to the other, or to and fro. This technology is going to enable us to accomplish that, which would be a sequel to Gaganyaan, and later on when we are planning to have the first Indian placing his foot on the surface of moon by the year 2040. And also when we have our own space station, which is being scheduled as of now for 2035. So when we have a space station over there, as I said, to put it in layman's language, how do we land there? How do we move things there? So we need to have this technology. We can't simply have a station there which is just hanging in space and we sitting down here watching it. So how do we actually arrange transportation to and fro? And that is where, to put it in simple terms, this docking technology, and which is also undocking at the same time, is going to help. This being very cost effective. Our two satellites, one named Chaser, the other one named the Target, have cost just about 125 crore rupees each, and our launch vehicle 250, which makes it hardly about 375 crore or so, which is a very small fraction of the similar missions undertaken by other agencies, whether it's the NASA or it's the European Space Agency. And that has once again confirmed our abilities to go in for cost-effective missions at a competitive level, which was also made evident by our Chandrayaan 3. It was just about 600 crore. The other new feature of it would be the biological experiment, which we I think was not mentioned. So we have a program called CROP. So CROP stands for Compact Research Module for Plant Research. So there will be research related to crops, research as as we move on to have our astronauts staying over there, possibly in Bharatiya Antariksh Station, and then we also arrange for the other amenities required. How do we experiment with that? And simultaneously, very much in keeping with the concept of whole of science and whole of government, I think I also wish to add to what has been already said, that this mission was also accomplished in collaboration with a number of other institutions across the country. The Tata Institute, the IIT, the Indian Institute of Sciences. Of course, it was ISRO which was doing the launching and carrying out the, but in one way or the other, others were also contributing. And interestingly, which might sound a little unusual, we also have now roved in the Department of Biotechnology, which seems to be a little distant from all that is space meant for, because we have a valid reason for that. When we send up the human into the space, to begin with, of course, in a human space mission, later on to land on the surface of the moon, and then possibly also to stay inside the Antariksh Station. How would his physiology behave? What would be his biological requirements over there? How do we meet them? How do we give up to them? So space biology is a new area of study which is emerging, and I'm glad that India has decided to take a lead. So we have entered into an MOU between the ISRO and the Department of Biotechnology. And therefore, we would also be able to tell the rest of the world what happens to an astronaut where, at what position in the space, and how do you manage that. I think I don't need to tell you about the various technical aspects as he's mentioned. The docking, I think, is also abundantly shown in the live television visuals yesterday, how they get closer. I mean, it's amazing that from their speed of as much as 28,800 kilometers, because you have to generate interest among the young startups. I think this needs to be also told to young children, those who are initiated into science. How fascinating, in fact, how romantic it is. From a speed of 28,800 kilometers, you reduce down to as less a speed or a velocity of just 0.038 kilometers. And then gradually you get close, virtually emerging, which you may not be doing when you're driving two vehicles on the roadside, but you're doing this in the space. It's just like opening the doors of the two vehicles and then the passengers exchanging the vehicle. You can move into your vehicle, you move into my vehicle. So something so fascinating and so romantic, which you would have heard in the fairy tales in your kindergarten days, is actually being accomplished now in space. So why I'm saying so is that that would generate interest among the youngsters. We have a lot of many youngsters now coming forward, and some of the sky routes that he was naming are among now the world potential, not only world potential startups, but also very lucrative entrepreneurs. Some of them have made a fortune within a small amount of time. The other part, I think, which is also of tremendous interest to the media is that in the last few years, our space economy is also on the rise, which means I often take pleasure in saying that when we say that we will be number 3, after 4, then 3, then 5 trillion, and then gradually reach that pedestal by 2047. As scientific minds, what is expected of us is to analyze, to share, and to tell where is the value addition going to come from. So value addition to this growth of India's economy or India's growth story as far as economics is concerned will come from those sectors which were either unexplored or underexplored, which also includes the space sector. The other sectors, of course, being the marine resources, for which also the same government has started a deep sea mission, which was announced by Prime Minister right for the airports in Bedford in his Independence Day address. And third one, of course, the Himalayan resources, where again I'm proud that the same ministry through CSIR has launched a Roma mission, of which also again Prime Minister very encouragingly spoke in one of his Man Ki Baat broadcasts. But now coming to space specifically, we have started adding to our space economy. Today we are just about 2% of the economy, but we hope that within 7-8 years we go up about 4 times. So from 8.4 billion US dollars, we hope to go up to 44 billion US dollars. And that's happened because of an increasing participation, collaboration, and doing away with the demarcation between the private and the public sector. And that is one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is that we are also increased our earnings through the launchings of foreign satellites. So it sounds not only amazing, it gives you a sense of pride that we started off our journey much later. ISRO was born in 1969, the year when NASA landed its first human being on the surface of the moon. But today, we are earning from NASA by launching their satellites. So, to be more precise, we have so far earned 172 million US dollars by launching the US satellites, and as much as 292 million euros through the European satellites. The process had, in a small measure, a small scale, began before 2014, but it was virtually non-existent. The entire push has happened now, which again I can statistically prove to you that we have 292 European satellites sent so far, launched so far from Sriharikota, out of which 260, nearly 90% was launched after Prime Minister Modi came in 2014. And similarly, if you look at the American satellites, out of 172, I was talking of the euros, sorry. If you talk the satellites, out of the total foreign satellites, 432 launched so far, as many as 397, which means over 90% have been launched after 2014. And similarly, if in the terms of euros, out of 292 euros that I just now told you, as much as 260 million were earned in the last 10 years, and out of $172 million, as much as 157 million earned in the last 10 years. So in the last 10 years, it's been 9% hike in our space economy, and we hope to maintain the same pace. In fact, it's quite likely that our pace will go up further, and now we have also added on, for the first time, another location for launching in the Tuticorin district of Tamil Nadu, which will be handy also for many other reasons. And some of the upcoming, we have very ambitious calendar lined up for the next few years. As he mentioned, we are going to have this Vayomitra Gaganyaan, as I mentioned a few moments earlier, NICER, which is the NASA and ISRO, which was deferred, is going to happen again in March. Gaganyaan, of course, all the 4 astronauts have been identified, and if not by the end of 25, beginning of 26, it will be there. Chandrayaan in 27, Venus mission in 27, which Pallav has in MoS way named it as Shukriyaan, but official name is Venus mission. Anyway, we borrow many things from him. And 2035 Bharat Antariksh Station, and 2040 will be the Indian human being on the surface of the moon. So these are some of the ambitious missions lined up, and I think another model that has been placed before the world through the Department of Space, Government of India, is that we are no longer confined only to the launching of rockets. For the benefit of those cynics who sometimes say, what is the fun, what are you going to gain out of sending? So may I tell them that our space missions are just a fraction of the cost of the counterpart missions sent by other agencies, though we are in a select lead of just about 3 or 4 nations. But our application of space technology in different sectoral projects is much higher in scale compared to any other country. Whether it's the health sector, it's the agriculture sector. Just now we were talking about the Swamitva program, which was to happen 2 days back because the voting period got deferred. Again, using space technology, one of the role models for the rest of the world, where you can do the mapping of your farms and your land. using drones and the space technology, whether it is the construction of the smart cities, roads and buildings, bridges, unmanned railway crossings. So you name any sector, space technology in India has been applied almost in every sector of development and every infrastructure project. So with these few words, I think I once again, and yes, just to add to the reporting part of it, the docking is possibly going to happen on the 7th, sometime during the forenoon, which will be again a very interesting sight when the two satellites actually come close to each other. It is not different, of course, when you drive a car, the engine has to be similar, but we have improved upon that in the sense that our load would be lesser, price would be lesser, and in the process the weight of the vehicle itself will come down. सबसे पहली बात तो ये है कि गगनयान की अभी ये हमारी टेस्ट फ्लाइट्स चल रही हैं, क्योंकि उसके अलग अलग मॉड्यूल्स हैं। एक का क्रू मॉड्यूल है, एक का उसका एक्सपेरिमेंट का मॉड्यूल है, और दूसरा ये है कि उसको वापस किस प्रकार से सुरक्षित ले जाना, क्योंकि जिस तरह से अंतरिक्ष में भेजने का भी एक बहुत बड़ी चुनौती भी रहती है और एक बड़ा उसमें आनंद भी महसूस होता है उसको भेजने, उसी प्रकार की चुनौती है उनको सुरक्षित वापस लाना पानी में, और वो भी एक होल ऑफ साइंस एंड होल ऑफ गवर्नमेंट अप्रोच के साथ होता है। वहाँ नेवल गार्ड्स की भी भागीदारी रहती है, इंडियन नेवी की भी रहती है कि कैसे वहाँ से हमारे जो अंतरिक्ष में गए हुए हमारे सज्जन उनको किस तरह से वापस उनका इंश्योर करना। तो उस सब के लिए अलग अलग मॉड्यूल्स का और अलग अलग फंक्शंस का टेस्ट फ्लाइट्स एक श्रृंखलाबद्ध तरीके के साथ होता है। वो सिलसिला जारी है, लगभग समाप्त होने को है। जब वो सारा संपन्न हो जाएगा तो फिर एक फाइनल हमारी फ्लाइट रहेगी, जिसे मैंने कहा कि हम, हालांकि वो कोई अधिकृत वैज्ञानिक एक्सप्रेशन नहीं है, लेकिन हम कह सकते हैं फाइनल ड्रेस रिहर्सल। उसमें भी एक मानव जीवित ना जा करके एक रोबो जाएंगे, और वो रोबो फीमेल रोबोट होंगे जिनका नाम होगा, और वो वही सारे कार्य अंजाम देंगे जो जब मानव जाएगा वो करेगा। वो सारे संपन्न करके जब वो वापस सुरक्षित उसी तरह उतरेंगे पानी में, और हम उनको सुरक्षित धरती पर ला करके उनका स्वागत कर सकेंगे, तो फिर हम संतुष्ट हैं कि अब हम अगला फाइनल फ्लाइट भेज सकते हैं गगनयान का। और वो सारी प्रक्रिया इस वर्ष के अंदर लगभग संपन्न हो जाएगी। गगनयान के बाद जैसे हम भारतीय अंतरिक्ष स्टेशन पे जा रहे हैं, तो वहाँ पर भी अगर हमने कुछ पेलोड अंदर भेजने हैं, कुछ बैटरीज एक्सचेंज करनी है, या हमें लगता है कि किसी सैटेलाइट को जब हमने भेजा था तो ये समझ के ये कल्पना करके भेजा था कि 2 वर्ष रख रहा है, फिर लगा नहीं, जो इससे हमें इनपुट्स आ रही हैं उनको भी उस सिलसिले को थोड़ा जारी रखना में हमें लाभ रहेगा, बजाय इसके कि इनको वापस लाए सैटेलाइट को फिर दूसरा भेजें तो और ज़्यादा खर्चा आएगा। तो हो सकता है हम इसी प्रक्रिया के माध्यम से वहाँ बैटरी वहाँ नहीं पहुँचा दें, उनकी लाइफ लंबी कर दें। तो अनेकों तरीके से, या भारत अंतरिक्ष स्टेशन में कल एस्ट्रोनॉट्स भी जा सकते हैं। इन अदर वर्ड्स, स्पेस डेब्री इज ऑफ कोर्स न्यू area, because more and more number of satellites, there are thousands of satellites in fact hovering over the Indian space as well. But in fact I have suggested someday we could arrange a small visit by some of the media friends from Delhi. So we did that for some of the friends from South, from Bengaluru and Chennai. We are among the first who just about 2 years back got a technology to detect the debris and also to enable our satellites to avoid it and also to manage it. So we are already into it. So we are very cautious of it, very seriously seized the matter, and in fact we are now confidently placed to handle this as well. So it's to be seen to be believed. We have a huge screen at our ISRO headquarters which gives you a real-time feedback all the 24 hours. The private sector has already stepped in a big way. Now, like for example, the first 2 startup groups who sought the services of the Sriharikota launch station to launch their rockets. The first one, of course, was suborbital. Now they are planning to go beyond that. Have actually now turned into entrepreneurs in just about 2-3 years. One of them has set up a factory developing, I think, first ever factory developing rockets in the private sector, which is placed quite close to, located quite close to the Hyderabad airport. And they are now, I was in fact telling them in the lighter way, I said, you paid us to launch your vehicle, and now you expect us to pay you to purchase your rockets. But it's very reassuring to find that our startups actually are moving from one level to the other. And the space sector startups are also creating a precedence for others to follow. And also creating a lot of interest in the media. तो मुझे लगता है कि हमने काफ़ी इसका विवरण हो गया, क्योंकि अगर हमने अगले स्तर पर जाना है तो हमारे पास ये टेक्नोलॉजी होना अनिवार्य है। वरना क्या होता है कि हम केवल सैटेलाइट छोड़ते हैं, फिर उसकी लाइफ समाप्त हो जाती है, तो या तो वो अंतरिक्ष में ही खो जाता है, वो अपनी सूचनाएं भेजना बंद कर देता है, हम भी उसके साथ कम्युनिकेट करना बंद कर देते हैं, या फिर वो कहीं कहीं लौट आता है, लेकिन उसका कोई इस तरीके से हम उसका जीवन काल बढ़ा सकते हैं। हम दूसरे सैटेलाइट के माध्यम से कुछ आमोदरफ्त का काम करना हो, भले ही वो पेलोड्स एंड सामान है या आगे चल करके मानव भी हो सकता है, वो कर सकते हैं। यानी इस तरह से है कि एक सैटेलाइट अपना दरवाज़ा खोलेगा कि दूसरे सैटेलाइट से कुछ आ जा सके। ये एक कठिन टेक्नोलॉजी है, और हमारे लिए संतोषजनक बात यह है कि भारत ने इसे अपने तौर पर अपने ही साधनों से, इंडिजिनस साधनों से इसको हासिल भी किया, और उन देशों की तुलना में हम आकर के उनके स्तर पर आकर के खड़े हो गए जो कई वर्ष पहले से इस प्रयास में लगे हुए थे। और अगर एक वाक्य में कहा जाए तो अगले आने वाले समय की जो हमारी मिशन रहेगी, उनके लिए इस प्रकार की टेक्नोलॉजी का होना अनिवार्य है, नहीं तो वो हमारी अगली मिशन के लिए एक तरह का एक लिमिटेशन बन जाएगा, सेल्फ लिमिटिंग हो जाएगा। वी मे नॉट बी एबल टू मूव बियॉन्ड अ सर्टेन लिमिट इफ वी डोंट हैव दिस टेक्नोलॉजी।
इट इज़ यूज्ड फॉर एक्चुअल डॉकिंग इन द भारतीय अंतरिक्ष स्टेशन। और ये यूएस में एक हमारे एस्ट्रोनॉट के ट्रेनिंग ले रहे हैं एक्सियोम 4 मिशन के लिए।
जाने का जो आपका दूसरा भाग है वो तो अभी हो ही रहा है आने वाले दिनों में, अगले वर्ष के आरंभ में इस प्रकार की है। और उसमें भी हमारे लिए गर्व की बात यह है कि जब प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी वॉशिंगटन डीसी गए थे दौरे पर, तो वहाँ से ये सुझाव आया और एक प्रस्ताव आया कि भारतीय मूल के कुछ अंतरिक्ष विशेषज्ञ भी आए और उनके हमरा वो इंटरनेशनल से, यानी भारतीय वैज्ञानिकों की प्रतिभा और उनकी काबिलियत का एक तरह का एक्नॉलेजमेंट भी है, मान्यता भी है। लिमिटेड टर्म है, बट आई थिंक ब्रॉडली स्पीकिंग इज लाइक स्पेस क्राफ्ट, जैसे एयरक्राफ्ट है वैसे स्पेस क्राफ्ट। तो स्वाभाविक है कि आगे भी उसी प्रकार से हम बढ़ते जाएंगे अपने अनुभव के आधार पर। आई थिंक रिस्पॉन्डिंग टू द फर्स्ट पार्ट ऑफ योर क्वेश्चन, ऑफ कोर्स established players would continue to have their role as much as the startups. So it's not that the startups are asking the elders or the established ones to be eliminated. In fact, there's a very healthy now synergy happening. Because earlier on, before Prime Minister Modi opened up the space sector to private players, we were not only limiting ourselves resource-wise in the terms of finances, but also knowledge-wise. Now we have a lot of newer inputs also coming in the form of these young minds, young brains who come to collaborate. Sometimes they do some value addition, like for example, when one of those earlier startups used the facility, ISRO's facility to launch its rocket, we then realized, and I shared with Somnath, they had put a camera on the top of the rocket. Because they came from a new genre of society, so they knew some of these intricacies better than us. So I asked them, I said, what is this? He said, sir, you picturize this launching from the ground. We have put in a camera, it will capture it from there and send it to us. So there's much of healthy synergy happening between the young minds, fresh minds, and also the veterans. Now as far as the second part of you is concerned, of course, this government works in a very holistic manner, not in silos, whole of science plus whole of government and also whole of nation. Ultimately, it has to be for the good of the citizen of the country. And when you mentioned where is the planning done, I think the planning is also done very synergized manner. But what is most encouraging is that we have a huge support from the Prime Minister's personal indulgence itself. And sometimes I shudder to think whether it would have ever been possible to open up the space sector to the private sector if we did not have someone like Shri Narendra Modi as the Prime Minister. Because for 60, 70 years it went on like that. And the successive governments were complacent and also contented with the status quo, to the extent that even the space researchers had given up making a demand like this. But if we are looking forward to be there on that pedestal, that Viksit Bharat, but we have to look for global benchmarks, global strategies, global parameters, and therefore we have to, if we have to compete globally, we have to follow the same strategies which are being followed. NASA, for example, and then we have a whole ecosystem, Pallavi, you will appreciate. When space is not functioning in isolation, you have the National Research Foundation which is coming into being, which is also going to hugely contribute to our science-related missions, including space missions, where again, in keeping with the tone and tenor of the present government, we are going to have more than 60% of resource from the non-government quarters. I and the chairman were discussing, of course, we have a culture of exchanging inputs, because you rightly mentioned, sometimes the challenges are similar. So of course, we keep learning from the inputs received by them, but they have now made some headway. That was told to us by NASA. And of course, learning from that experience, are we also moving forward? And this docking technology is also a step in that direction. जब हमारी अर्थव्यवस्था उस शिखर पटल पर पहुंचेगी तो उसकी वैल्यू एडिशन उन साधनों से होगी जो शायद पहले ना पर्याप्त तौर पर तराशे गए ना तलाशे गए, चाहे वो हमारे समुद्र के साथ संबंधित साधन थे, हिमालय के साथ 4-5 राज्य हमारे हिमालय की गोद में बसते हैं, अरुणाचल, उत्तराखंड, हिमाचल, कश्मीर, और साथ ही साथ हमारा अंतरिक्ष का क्षेत्र, जिसके लिए हमारे पास प्रतिभा थी, योग्यता थी और प्रतिबद्धता और मेहनत, ये गुण भी थे हमारे विशेषज्ञों में, परंतु उस प्रकार का उनको सहयोग नहीं प्राप्त हुआ जिस प्रकार का उन्हें अपेक्षित था नीति निर्धारकों के तरफ से। वो 2014 के बाद संभव, और यही कारण है कि मैं जैसे कह रहा था कि मात्र 1-2% हमारा हिस्सा था भौगोलिक स्तर पर स्पेस इकोनॉमी का। आज हम इतनी तेज रफ्तार से आगे बढ़ने लगे हैं कि इतना साहस है हमें ये कहने का कि अगले 7-8 वर्षों में हम 4 गुना और हो जाएंगे, 8-10% तक पहुंच जाएंगे। यदि आज हम मात्र 4-8 बिलियन US डॉलर पर खड़े हैं तो होने वाला समय में अगले 10 वर्ष से पहले ही, आपने 10 वर्ष का, लेकिन उससे पहले ही शायद हम 24 बिलियन तक पहुंचे। तो कहने का तात्पर्य यह है कि अपनी क्षमताओं का पूरा उपयोग पर्याप्त तौर पर अभी होना शुरू हुआ और इस तरह से स्पेस सेक्टर को भी इसका लाभ मिलने वाला है और स्पेस का एक महत्वपूर्ण योगदान रहने वाला है हमारी अर्थव्यवस्था में।
So that we can bring the weather to our own resources, sir. Thank you.
No, by the presentation made by him, one of the satellites has been actually suggested, supported by the Ministry of Earth Sciences, which also incidentally I am associated. So the ISRO has launched it for the benefit of the Earth Sciences objectives, including the weather. Very recently you had Mission MoS launched, which was also a part of the third term of the government, which is Modi 3.0. And the weather forecast, unlike in the bygone years, were using mostly radar information, etc. Then they moved on to space technology. But now we are moving further also. So there's huge involvement of space technology in order to make the forecasts more precise. And not only in weather, but also in the forecast of disasters. We have virtually mastered the disaster preparedness technology. And we are also now offering our services to the other countries, mostly the neighboring countries. So we are now way ahead. And if you are seeing only from the point of view of weather, we are also, I mean, though that's not strictly related to the Department of Science or the subject of this afternoon's media interaction, but we are in the process of setting up with the Ministry of Health Sciences through IMD a whole lot of new weather stations because now that we are also into the 150th year of IMD. Because like for example, most of these questions are prompted by the Delhi weather. And obviously so, we don't guide that, we have to live up to that expectation. So what is happening is that Delhi of today is no longer Delhi per se. Haryana is also Delhi, UP is also Delhi, it's, spread all. So we need to have more number of those stations. For example, sitting here, my forecast may not be as precise as you would expect for Greater Noida or something like that. But now we are already in process. I think within a year or so, we will have more number of these pickup points, and our forecast will also become more and more precise. And of course, they'll be using the space technology as well.